The war ended not with victory but with exhaustion. Both sides had lost too much to continue. The Kryn Empire fractured politically. The military leadership was overthrown by civilian politicians who had watched their civilization bleed for a pointless war. Humanity's colonies lay in ruins. Billions dead on both sides. No winners. Only survivors. Velthara's testimony approached its conclusion. She sat in the witness stand looking older than her years. The burn scars on her face seemed darker under the tribunal's lights. She told them about the aftermath, about what happened when the shooting stopped, but the dying continued. The new Kryn government admitted the invasion was unjustified. They offered reparations, money, resources, technology, anything to make peace. But how do you pay for 8 million dead children? How do you compensate a species for nearly being exterminated? The humans accepted the reparations because they needed them to survive. But everyone knew it changed nothing. Money does not bring back the dead. Velthara confessed her own guilt to the tribunal. She had provided the intelligence for the initial invasion. She had recommended Eden 7 as a target. She had written reports saying humans would surrender easily. Every human who died, she said through tears, was partially her fault. She killed them with her reports, with her analysis, with her fundamental misunderstanding of what humans would become when threatened. Judge Corvin listened patiently. The chamber was silent except for Velthara's voice. She told them she came to testify because she owed humanity truth. Truth was all she had left to give. She could not give them back their families, could not rebuild their worlds, could not undo the bombardments. But she could tell the truth about what happened, why it happened, who was responsible. For the first time in the proceedings, the human observers were allowed to speak. Dr. Hyun stood. She walked slowly to the front of the chamber. She held a photograph in her hands. Her research team, 23 smiling faces, all dead now, all killed in the first hours of the war. Hyun's voice was quiet but clear. She told the tribunal that humans never wanted war. They wanted to study the stars, raise their children, build something beautiful in the darkness of space. The Kryn came and took that away, made humans choose between dying peacefully or becoming monsters to survive. Some days, she said, she was not sure they chose correctly. She spoke about the things she did during the war, the biological warfare, the psychological torture, the systematic exploitation of Kryn weaknesses. She had used her knowledge to cause suffering. She had done it knowingly, deliberately. She was not sorry for fighting back, but she was sorry for what fighting back made her become. The tribunal played a recording. Admiral Yoon Seok's final message, recorded just before his ramming attack. His face was calm on the screen, his voice steady. He spoke to whoever would find the recording. Human or alien, he wanted them to understand that humans did not want this. They were farmers, engineers, artists, dreamers. They became soldiers because they had no choice. They became killers because the Kryn made them. Yoon Seok said every Kryn life they took weighed on them. But their children weighed more. He asked whoever watched to remember humans as they were, not what war made them become. And he begged them to never make anyone else face this choice, because people are capable of anything when protecting what they love, even becoming monsters. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. Several representatives were crying. Judge Corvin called for a brief recess before delivering preliminary findings. The tribunal would need months to reach final conclusions. But some things were already clear. The Kryn Empire was guilty of crimes against sentient species, unjustified invasion, bombardment of civilian populations, attempted genocide. These findings were unanimous. The evidence was overwhelming. The Kryn representatives did not contest them, but humanity also violated galactic conventions. Torture of prisoners, biological warfare, psychological warfare, indiscriminate attacks on military and civilian targets. These violations were documented, proven. Humanity did not deny them. Judge Corvin addressed this carefully. He acknowledged that humanity fought under existential threat. They faced extinction. In such circumstances, he said, conventional rules of warfare become meaningless abstractions. When someone is trying to exterminate your entire species, concepts like proportional response lose all meaning. Survival becomes the only law. The galaxy's view of humanity changed. They were no longer dismissed as a simple species. Multiple civilizations offered alliances, not from friendship, from fear. They had watched humanity fight. watched them refuse to surrender even when extinction seemed certain. Watched them make the Kryn Empire bleed for every meter of space. No one wanted to fight a species like that. The human colonies remained scarred. Cities were ruins, populations decimated, entire generations dead. But the survivors carried something new. A reputation. A warning to anyone who might threaten them. Humanity had looked at extinction and refused to blink. That memory would not fade quickly. Velthara finished her testimony with a final statement. She looked directly at the human observers. At Dr. Hyun, at the family members of those who died. She said she was sorry. She knew it meant nothing. Knew it changed nothing, but she needed them to know that some Kryn understood what they did. Some tried to stop it, and all who survived carried the weight of what they allowed to happen. Dr. Hyun stood. The chamber fell completely silent. She walked to the witness stand. Everyone expected her to speak, to condemn Velthara, to express her anger. Instead, she embraced the alien woman, held her as both of them cried. Two survivors from opposite sides, both broken by the same war, both scarred by what it made them do. No words were exchanged. None were needed. They understood each other in a way no one else in that chamber could. They both knew what it meant to become something terrible in the name of survival. They both knew the weight of living when so many died. They both knew there are no winners in war, only different kinds of losers. The tribunal prepared a joint statement. Velthara and Hyun helped write it. It would be sent to every civilization in the galaxy, a warning, a lesson, a plea to learn from their mistakes. The statement was simple. Two species went to war. Both thought they understood what war meant. Both were wrong. War is not about battles and strategy. War is making peaceful people into killers. War is destroying everything that makes life worth living and calling it necessity. War is children who never grow up and parents who never forgive themselves for surviving. The human war front was hell, not because of weapons or tactics, because both sides made each other become things they never wanted to be. The statement urged other civilizations to learn from this, to never force anyone to make these choices, because when you threaten everything someone loves, you might discover they are capable of anything, even becoming monsters. The tribunal adjourned. In the gallery, human survivors sat quietly. Some cried. Some stared at nothing. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, held her grandmother's hand. The grandmother wore a military uniform with many medals. Her name tag read Misuk, the woman who showed Velthara mercy during the war, who chose to remain human when becoming a monster would have been easier. Misuk had survived the war, but she lost everyone except this one grandchild. Her 3 daughters were dead. Her husband was dead. Most of her friends were dead. She survived because Dr. Hyun pulled her onto the last evacuation ship from New Seoul. Now she was teaching her granddaughter how to live in a universe that had tried to kill them. The little girl looked up at her grandmother. She asked why the Kryn came to their homes, why they hurt so many people. Misuk knelt down to the child's level. She explained that the Kryn did not understand. They thought humans were weak. They learned differently. The hard way, the girl thought about this. Then she asked if humans were still weak. Misuk looked around the chamber, at Velthara still sitting in the witness stand, at the empty chairs representing those who died, at Dr. Hyun standing beside the alien who helped destroy humanity's worlds. Misuk told her granddaughter that no, humans were not weak. But they paid a terrible price to prove it. 17 billion Kryn died. 8 million humans on Eden 7, 8 million on Novaterra, millions more on other worlds, countless others in the fighting. All to prove that humans do not surrender when you threaten their families. She told the little girl that she prayed to God the child would never have to prove it again, that she could grow up in peace, study the stars like humans used to, dream about the future instead of being haunted by the past, live in a universe that remembered the cost of this war, remembered enough to never repeat it. The girl hugged her grandmother. They sat together as the chamber slowly emptied. Survivors from both sides leaving to resume lives that would never be the same, carrying memories that would never fade, teaching future generations about the war, about the price, about what happens when civilizations forget that behind every military target are families, children, dreams, lives worth more than territory or pride or power. The human war front was hell. Everyone who survived knew it. Everyone who died proved it. and everyone who came after would learn from it. Or so they hoped, because hope was all that remained after everything else burned. The courtroom was silent. Velthara stood at the witness stand, her dark green scales catching the cold light from above. Burns covered the left side of her body, ugly marks that told a story she wished she could forget. Her hands shook as she gripped the metal rail in front of her. Hundreds of eyes watched her. Representatives from 17 different species filled the seats. They had come to hear the truth about the war. The war that had killed billions? The war that had changed everything. Magistrate Corvin, an old insect-like being with wise eyes, nodded at her. His voice was gentle. "Please begin when you are ready." Velthara took a deep breath. "My name is Velthara. I was an intelligence commander in the Kryn Empire's 7th Fleet. I am here today because I must be. Because 17 billion of my people cannot speak anymore. They are dead. We called our mission Operation Golden Dawn. We thought we would return home as heroes. We thought we would return as conquerors. Instead, I am the last surviving officer of my entire fleet." She paused. Her throat felt tight. In the back of the room, she could see them. The humans. They sat quietly watching her with hard eyes. One of them was an old military officer named Yun Seok. He had only one arm. His face looked like stone. Next to him sat a young woman called Ha-Eun. She held a photograph in her hands, clutching it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Before the war, Velthara continued, we studied the humans. Our intelligence files said they were a Tier 3 species. That meant they had decent technology but nothing special. Their military forces followed standard patterns. They seemed ordinary. Their colony worlds looked easy to control. We saw their small defense fleets and thought they would surrender quickly. She touched a button on the console in front of her. A hologram appeared, showing a beautiful blue and green planet. This is Eden 7, a human colony world, home to 4 million humans. They had farms there, schools, families living peaceful lives. Our empire wanted their resources. We wanted their submission. We thought we could take it easily. The magistrate leaned forward. What happened when your fleet arrived? Velthara's voice grew quieter. We expected them to talk, to negotiate, maybe to surrender without fighting. That was how it always worked with other species. But the humans, they did something we never expected. They fought back immediately. The hologram changed. It showed civilian mining ships, cargo haulers, simple vessels meant for work, not war. Their mining ships transformed into weapons. They had hidden missiles inside cargo containers. Their communication satellites became orbital guns. Every civilian in the colony picked up whatever weapon they could find. She stopped talking for a moment. The memory was painful. There was a man. His name was Taijin. Just a mining foreman, someone who dug rocks for a living. He filled his mining hauler with explosives. Then he flew it straight into our flagship's hangar bay. He killed himself. He killed 400 of our crew. We thought he was crazy. We thought he was alone in his madness. Velthara looked directly at the humans in the back. We were wrong. He was not alone. He was just the first. The battle for Eden 7 had lasted 6 days. 6 days of fighting unlike anything the Kryn had ever seen. The humans refused to retreat. They refused to surrender. Parents fought alongside their children. Teachers became soldiers. Doctors built bombs in their hospitals. Our commanders grew angry, Velthara said. They did not understand. Why would these humans throw their lives away? We had bigger ships. We had more soldiers. We had better weapons. They should have seen they could not win. The magistrate's voice was soft. What did your commanders decide? Velthara closed her eyes. This was the hard part. They ordered a full orbital bombardment. They said it would teach the humans a lesson. They said it would show them the cost of resistance. The hologram changed again. Now it showed Eden 7 from space. Velthara's voice broke as she described what came next. We fired everything we had at their cities. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. 3 million humans died. We watched them try to evacuate. We watched families running for shelter. We watched it all burn. Tears ran down her scaled face. In the back, some of the human observers looked away. Others stared at her with expressions she could not read. I thought it would end the fighting, Velthara whispered. I thought surely now they would surrender. How could they not? We had killed so many. We had shown them our power. She pressed another button. A recording played. The courtroom heard a human voice speaking in calm, clear words. It was a woman named Ji Woo. Her face filled the hologram. She was covered in dust and blood. Behind her, Eden 7 was burning. Jiwoo's voice was steady as she spoke. You came to our homes. You murdered our families. You think this makes us weak. You think this makes us afraid. You are wrong. Now you will learn what humans become when you take everything from us. We are coming for you. The recording ended. The courtroom was silent again. Belthara looked at the magistrate. That was the moment I first felt real fear. Not fear of their weapons. Not fear of their numbers. I was afraid because of how she said those words. There was no anger in her voice. No rage, just cold certainty. She sounded like someone who had nothing left to lose. The old Kryn officer looked at her hands. They were still shaking. We thought killing 3 million humans would break their spirit. Instead, it freed them from fear. Dead people have nothing to be afraid of. And Jiwoo was right. They were already dead inside. Their families were gone. Their homes were ashes. They had become something else. Something we did not understand. She looked up at the ceiling, remembering. 72 hours after the bombardment, human forces attacked every Kryn position in the sector. All at once. They did not care about tactics. They did not care about survival. They just came at us like a storm, like a force of nature that could not be stopped. Belthara's voice dropped to barely a whisper. We had started a war, but we did not understand what war meant to humans. We thought war was about strategy and power. For humans, war became personal. It became about revenge, about making sure we paid for every child we killed, every home we destroyed. The magistrate gave her a moment to compose herself. Then he asked what happened next. Belthara wiped her eyes. Next came hell. The real hell. The kind of hell that happens when you take everything from someone, and they decide to take everything from you in return. That is when we learned the truth about humans. They are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest. But when you threaten their families, when you burn their homes, they become the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. She looked directly at Admiral Yoon Seok in the back of the room. The old human officer stared back at her with his hard, weathered face. For a moment, their eyes met. Two soldiers from opposite sides of an awful war. They kept their promise, Belthara said quietly. They came for us. And when they came, they brought hell with them. Belthara took a drink of water. Her hand still shook as she held the glass. The magistrate waited patiently for her to continue. The courtroom remained silent, everyone waiting to hear what came next. After the bombardment of Eden 7, she began again. We landed ground forces, 10,000 Kryn soldiers. We were trained, equipped with the best weapons. We thought occupying the planet would be simple. Most of the humans were dead. The survivors would be broken, scared, easy to control. She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. We were wrong about everything. The humans who survived were not broken. They were angry, and they knew every meter of their planet. Every cave, every tunnel, every place to hide. A new hologram appeared showing Kryn military convoys. Our supply trucks started disappearing, just gone. We would send them out with food, ammunition, medical supplies. They never reached their destinations. We found them days later, burned and empty. The drivers were dead. Belthara's voice grew darker. Then our patrols stopped coming back. We would send out 20 soldiers to check an area. Maybe 5 would return, sometimes none. The humans were hunting us. They used the land against us. They knew when we were coming. They knew where we were weak. She showed another image, a Kryn soldier's report marked with blood. This is from one of the few survivors. He wrote about a man named Seung-ho. Before the war, Seung-ho was a farmer. He grew food, lived peacefully. Then we killed his entire family in the bombardment. His wife, his children, everyone he loved. Belthara paused. Seung-ho became something different after that. He learned how to make bombs from farming equipment. He taught other survivors how to turn tractors into weapons, how to use fertilizer as explosives. He knew the land better than we ever could. He used that knowledge to kill us. The magistrate asked, "How did your forces respond?" "My commander was named Dalrek," Belthara said. He was a veteran. He had won 12 campaigns before Eden 7. He was proud. He believed in Kryn superiority. When the humans kept attacking us, he grew angry. He said the humans were cowards for not fighting us directly. He did not understand that they were fighting smart, not fair. She looked down at her burned hands. One day, a Kryn patrol walked into a trap. The humans had set up what looked like a survivor camp. 37 of our soldiers went to investigate. It was all fake. The camp was filled with explosives. Only 2 soldiers escaped alive. One of them went insane from what he saw. The hologram showed a written report. Velthera read from it. The survivor said that after the explosion, humans came out from hiding. They did not run away. They stayed to make sure every Kryn soldier was dead. He saw Shung Ho there checking bodies one by one, calm, methodical, like he was checking his crops, not killing people. Velthara's voice cracked. That was when we realized these humans were not trying to win battles. They were trying to kill us, all of us, one by one if necessary. She described what happened next. The humans began psychological warfare. They left messages for the Kryn soldiers. They arranged bodies to spell out words. They broadcast recordings of Kryn soldiers crying for help, playing them on repeat near Kryn positions. There was a woman named Bora, Velthara said quietly. She hijacked our communication channels. For 6 days straight, she read names. Just names. The names of human children who died in the bombardment. One name every hour. She read for 144 hours. We could not stop her signal. Our soldiers had to listen to every name. The effect was devastating. Kryn soldiers started having mental breakdowns. Some refused to leave their bases. Others deserted. The humans were not just fighting with weapons. They were fighting with fear and guilt. Commander Dalrek decided we needed to be harsh, Velthara said, her voice barely above a whisper. He said the humans needed to learn fear, so he ordered the execution of prisoners. 50 human civilians, old people, children. They were brought to the center of our main base. They were killed in front of cameras. Dalrek broadcasted to all the human survivors. He thought it would make them surrender. Velthara stopped. She covered her face with her hands. The courtroom waited. Finally, she lowered her hands and continued. 12 hours later, the humans attacked us everywhere at once. Every Kryn base. Every checkpoint. Every patrol simultaneously. They had been planning it, waiting for the right moment. The execution of those civilians was the moment they chose. She showed footage from security cameras. Human fighters moving through Kryn positions with brutal efficiency. They were not trying to capture anything. They only wanted to kill Kryn soldiers, especially the ones involved in the executions. Velthara described the attack on the main command center where she was stationed. The lights went out first, then the alarms. Then we heard them in the corridors. Human combat boots, the sound of weapons firing, screams. She closed her eyes, remembering. They moved like trained soldiers, but they fought like it was personal. Because it was personal, they knew who had ordered the executions. They knew who had carried them out. They hunted those Kryn specifically. Velthara had been in her office when the humans breached the command center. I heard Commander Dalrek shouting orders. Then I heard him screaming. They took him alive. I tried to help him, but there were too many humans. They were everywhere. A young human fighter found Velthara hiding under her desk. His name was Jin Ho. He checked her identification card. He looked at security records on a computer terminal. He was confirming something, Velthara said. Checking if I had been at the execution. I had not been there. I was off duty that day. Jin Ho looked at her for a long moment. Then he hit her on the head with the butt of his rifle. She woke up hours later in the rubble. Most of the command center was destroyed. Kryn bodies were everywhere. There was a message carved into the wall next to me, Velthara said. It was in Kryn language, so I would understand. It said, "Tell them what they made us become." She took another drink of water. Commander Dalrek was found 3 days later. I will not describe what the humans did to him. The tribunal has the photographs if they wish to see. The humans made sure we found him. They wanted us to know what happens to those who murder children. Velthara looked at the magistrate. After that attack, we could not control Eden 7 anymore. We owned the bases we could defend. That was all. Everywhere else belonged to the humans. They moved in the shadows. They struck when we were weak. They showed no mercy because we had shown them none. She gestured to the humans sitting in the back of the courtroom. Sung Ho is not here today. He died fighting 2 months before the war ended. Bora survived. She is in a medical facility, unable to speak. Jin Ho is here, though. He is sitting in the 3rd row. Everyone turned to look. A young Korean man sat quietly, his face showing no emotion. Velthara met his eyes. He spared my life when he did not have to. He chose mercy when mercy was the hardest choice to make. I owe him my life. And I owe him the truth about what we did to his people. The magistrate asked if she needed a break. Velthara shook her head. No, I need to finish this. The hardest parts are still coming. The parts where we made everything worse. The parts where billions died because we would not admit we were wrong. The war spread. Belthara told the tribunal how the Kryn Empire made their fatal mistake. Instead of withdrawing, they sent more forces. 3 full battle fleets, thousands of warships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The Empire's high command believed overwhelming numbers would end the resistance. They were wrong. Humanity's military was small. Their shipyards had been destroyed in the first attacks. They had fewer than 50 warships left. The Kryn had over 1,000. By every measure, humans should have been crushed. But humans do not think like other species. They do not accept defeat just because the numbers say they should lose. A human admiral named Yun Suk took command of the defense forces. He was old, with gray hair and a weathered face. He had spent 40 years in the military. He understood conventional warfare. He also understood that conventional warfare would get every human killed, so he threw out the conventional approach. Yun Suk issued orders that shocked even his own officers. Every ship that could fly would become a weapon. Cargo haulers, passenger vessels, mining ships, civilian transports, everything. If it had engines and could reach orbit, it joined the fleet. Not to fight traditionally, to make the Kryn pay for every meter of space. A woman named Hyojin became crucial to this strategy. She was a starship engineer. Before the war, she designed propulsion systems. During the bombardment, she lost her husband and 2 sons. Now she designed something else. Ways to turn peaceful ships into weapons of revenge. Hyojin worked without sleeping. She showed other engineers how to modify civilian vessels, how to hide missile launchers in cargo bays, how to rig reactors to overload on command, how to pack ships with explosives and remote guidance systems. She was not building warships. She was building sacrifice vessels piloted by people who had nothing left to lose. The Kryn reinforcement fleets arrived expecting a traditional battle. They found chaos instead. 47 human vessels approached their position. The Kryn had 130 warships. The Kryn commanders were confident. This would be a massacre. They were right about the massacre. They were wrong about who would die. Belthara had been reassigned to the flagship of the reinforcement fleet. She watched the battle from the tactical displays. The human ships did not form traditional battle lines. They scattered. They used asteroids for cover. They led Kryn ships into gas clouds and gravity wells. Every environmental hazard became a weapon. An old cargo hauler piloted by a grandmother named Ari flew straight at the Kryn flagship. The Kryn weapons destroyed the hauler's shields, tore through its armor. But Ari kept coming. She crashed her burning ship into the flagship's bridge. The explosion killed the fleet admiral and his entire command staff. The flagship went dark. The Kryn fleet lost coordination. Another ship, crewed by 6 teenagers, rammed a Kryn dreadnought's engine section. The teenagers had all lost their families. They flew their father's mining vessel into the massive warship at full speed. The dreadnought's engines exploded. The ship began tearing itself apart. 300 Kryn died. 6 human children died. The exchange was not fair. But fairness was not the point anymore. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Kryn won. They destroyed every human vessel. But the cost was horrifying. 42 Kryn warships were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Over 15,000 Kryn soldiers dead. The humans killed their own numbers 30 times over. They traded 47 ships for 42 Kryn warships. That was not supposed to be possible. Admiral Yun Seok watched the battle from a command station on New Seoul, another human colony. He saw every ship die. He knew most of the pilots personally. He watched them choose death to hurt the enemy. After the battle ended, he sent a message to all remaining human forces. His face was calm. His voice was steady. He told them they were winning. The Kryn intercepted that message. They thought Yun Seok was insane. Humans had just lost another 47 ships and hundreds of crew. How was that winning? Belthara understood, though. She explained it to the tribunal. Yun Seok was counting differently. He was not counting ships. He was counting how expensive it was to fight humanity. And the price kept going up. Then the boarding actions began. Human teams started infiltrating Kryn vessels. They did not try to capture the ships. Hyojin had trained them in Kryn technology. They knew where to place explosives for maximum damage. They knew how to sabotage reactors. They knew how to kill ships from the inside. Belthara described one boarding action in detail. 5 humans breached a Kryn cruiser's engineering section. The Kryn security teams responded immediately. They sealed the section and prepared to flood it with toxic gas. They had 2 minutes. The humans knew they had 2 minutes. They used every second. The human team placed shaped charges on the reactor containment. They set a delayed cascade failure. Then they fought the Kryn security teams, not trying to escape, just buying time for their sabotage to complete. All 5 humans died, but when the Kryn finally cleared the section, they discovered the reactor was going critical. They had 40 minutes to evacuate. They could not evacuate everyone in time. 800 Kryn died when the ship exploded. This happened over and over. Human boarding teams became a nightmare. Every Kryn captain lived in fear of hull breaches, of small teams willing to die if it meant taking the ship with them. The Kryn started using more resources to guard their own vessels than to attack human positions. The Kryn Empire held emergency meetings. They reviewed the casualty reports. 17 billion Kryn were dead now. The cost kept climbing. Some officials suggested negotiation, suggested withdrawal. Let the humans have their dead worlds. It was not worth this price. But the military leadership refused. They had committed too much, lost too many. They could not appear weak. The Empire's reputation depended on victory, so they escalated again. They ordered a second bombardment, this time targeting Nova Terra, another major human colony. 8 million human civilians. The order was simple. Show humans that continued resistance meant extinction. Velthara watched the bombardment of Nova Terra from a fleet observation deck. She watched cities die, watched evacuation ships flee desperately. Most did not make it. She remembered thinking this would finally end it. Humans would have to surrender now. They had to. No species would continue fighting after losing 8 million people in a single day. She was wrong. Admiral Yoon Seok broadcast a response 18 hours after Nova Terra died. His message was short. His face showed no emotion. He said the Kryn thought killing humans would make them stop, but everyone they loved was already dead. They were ghosts now. Ghosts have nothing left to fear. Humanity was coming. Not for victory, for revenge, to make the Kryn remember. Forever. The next day, human forces launched simultaneous suicide attacks on every Kryn position, coordinated across 12 star systems, not strategic targets, not military objectives, just attacks designed to kill as many Kryn as possible. Hyejin herself piloted a ship packed with antimatter charges into a Kryn supply depot. The explosion destroyed the depot and 6 other installations. 5,000 Kryn died. Hyejin died with a smile on her face. The last transmission from her ship was simple. For my boys, Velthara stopped talking. She was crying again. Judge Corvin called for a recess. But Velthara shook her head. She needed to finish. The worst parts were still coming. The parts where both sides stopped being civilized. Where everyone became the monster. Where the war stopped being about conquest or defense and became about mutual destruction. Where humanity and the Kryn Empire both learned that hell is not a place. It is what you become when you fight too long, when you hurt too much, when you forget why you started fighting and only remember how to hate. Velthara's testimony grew darker. She described how the war changed from battle to mutual destruction. Both sides stopped following rules. Both sides stopped caring about anything except hurting the enemy. The galaxy watched in horror as 2 species tried to destroy each other completely. A human scientist named Ha-Un became important during this phase. Before the war, she studied alien biology. She specialized in understanding different species. She wrote papers about cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Then the bombardments killed her entire research team. 23 people she had worked with for years. Dead in minutes, Ha-Un still had her research. Years of studying Kryn biology, she knew their weaknesses, their sensitivities, their psychological triggers. She had kept this knowledge private. Academic information meant for understanding, not harming. War changed her perspective.
She gave her research to the human military.
All of it. The humans began using Ha-Un's research in their attacks. They contaminated Kryn food supplies with compounds that triggered panic responses in Kryn brains. They adjusted environmental controls in captured facilities to cause disorientation and fear. They broadcast sounds at frequencies that caused Kryn physical pain. They were not just fighting anymore. They were making the Kryn suffer psychologically. Velthara described the growing terror among Kryn forces. Soldiers started having breakdowns. Some refused to eat rations, terrified of contamination. Others could not sleep because of the sounds. The humans kept finding new ways to exploit Kryn weaknesses. It was systematic, calculated, scientific torture disguised as warfare. A human pilot named Sang-min led a siege of a major Kryn outpost. His tactics were different from traditional siege warfare. He surrounded the base with his forces. Then he waited. For 3 months. Not attacking, not allowing supplies in, just broadcasting messages. The messages were personal. Sang-min had hacked the Kryn personnel files. He knew the name of every soldier in that outpost. He knew about their families back home. He broadcast personal information, told them their families missed them, told them their children were asking when they would return. Then he played recordings of the bombardments, of humans dying, of children screaming, over and over, 24 hours every day. After 6 weeks, Kryn soldiers started surrendering, not because they were starving. The outpost had enough supplies for months. They surrendered because they could not endure the psychological torture. They could not sleep, could not think, could not function. They were broken mentally before they ran out of food. Sang-min had a photograph pinned to his flight suit. His 7-year-old daughter. She died at Nova Terra. He never talked about her, but everyone knew. When the Kryn soldiers finally surrendered, Sang-min did not celebrate. He just looked at the photograph and moved to the next target. Velthara told the tribunal about her own capture during this period. She was part of an evacuation convoy when human forces attacked. The Kryn ship scattered. Her escape pod crashed on a contested moon. She expected humans to find her and kill her. She was ready for it. She thought death was what she deserved after everything she had helped happen, but the humans took her to a refugee camp instead, a place where human survivors cared for the wounded, including Kryn prisoners. A woman named Misuk treated Velthara's injuries. Misuk had lost 3 children in the bombardment. 3 beautiful daughters, ages 5, 8, and 12, all dead. Yet she bandaged Velthara's wounds with gentle hands. Velthara broke down. She asked Misuk why. Why show mercy? Why not kill her? Why help someone whose people murdered her children? Misuk looked at her with eyes that seemed empty of everything except sadness. She said if she became like the Kryn, then they had already won, and she would not let them win anything else. Ever. That moment changed Velthara. She realized humans were still capable of mercy even after everything. They chose mercy. That was different from the Kryn Empire, which saw mercy as weakness. Misuk chose to remain human, to not become a monster, even though becoming a monster would have been easier, would have felt justified. While in the refugee camp, Velthara learned about the Empire's final plan. She still had access to Kryn military networks through her command codes. She saw the orders being transmitted. The Kryn High Command had decided on complete extermination. Every human world would be sterilized. No survivors. No prisoners. Complete genocide. The human species would cease to exist. Velthara made a choice. She transmitted the orders to human intelligence. Every detail. The locations. The timetable. The forces being assembled. It was treason. She knew it. She accepted it. She could not let another 8 million humans die. Could not let Misuk's mercy be repaid with extermination. The humans received the intelligence. Admiral Yoon Seok called an emergency meeting of all remaining forces. Every ship, every soldier, every civilian who could fight. He was honest with them. The Kryn were coming with everything they had. Humanity could not win, could not survive, but they could make victory impossible for the Kryn. They could make it cost too much. Yoon Seok named the operation Last Light. Every human vessel would converge on the Kryn staging ground. They would not try to destroy the Kryn fleet. They would make deploying that fleet impossible. Make it so expensive in lives and ships that the Empire would collapse trying to pay the price. Volunteers filled every ship. Civilians, soldiers, children barely old enough to understand what they were volunteering for. They knew it was suicide. Everyone knew, but they went anyway. Because someone had to. Because if they did not, then everything humanity fought for meant nothing. The human fleet was not a fleet. It was a collection of damaged warships, converted civilian vessels, and anything that could carry weapons or explosives. Against them stood the full might of the Kryn Empire. 2,000 warships, perfect formation, superior weapons, experienced crews. It should have been over in hours. Admiral Yoon Seok led from the front. His flagship was an old destroyer that should have been scrapped years ago. He broadcast one final message before the battle. He spoke about Eden 7, about Nova Terra, about every child who would never grow up, every dream that died when the Kryn came to human homes. He said humanity's last breath would count, would matter, would be remembered. The battle was chaos. Velthara watched from a secure facility, where the Kryn command monitored the engagement. The humans did not fight to win. They fought to make every second cost Kryn lives. Every human ship that died took at least one Kryn vessel with it. Usually more. The Kryn fleet was overwhelmed not by superior tactics but by an enemy that valued revenge over survival. Admiral Yoon Seok's flagship survived for 43 minutes. It was burning, powerless, crew dead or dying. He could have evacuated. Instead, he aimed his destroyed ship at the Kryn command dreadnought, used the last emergency thrusters to build speed, crashed into the dreadnought's main bridge. Both ships exploded. Yoon Seok died. The Kryn fleet commander died. 10,000 Kryn soldiers died. The fleet lost coordination. Sang-min led his squadron in protecting evacuation ships, civilian transports carrying the last human refugees. His fighters held off Kryn interceptors long enough for the transports to escape. Then, with fuel running low and ammunition spent, Sang-min and his pilots turned back toward the Kryn fleet. They did not return. No one expected them to. Dr. Ha-Yun stayed on New Seoul Station. The station was falling. Evacuations were underway. She refused to leave.
Instead, she broadcast.
Human history, human culture, human art and music and literature, everything that made humanity beautiful. She broadcast it all as the station died around her, ensuring that even if humans ceased to exist, something of what they were would survive. The Kryn won the battle. But the victory was meaningless. They lost over 800 warships, 100,000 soldiers. The staging ground was destroyed. The extermination fleet could not deploy. The Empire's military was shattered. The political structure began collapsing under the weight of the losses. Velthara finished this part of her testimony with simple words. The Kryn Empire came to exterminate humanity. Humanity decided that if they died, they would take the Empire with them. Both sides lost. Both sides bled. Both sides became monsters, and neither would ever forget what they did to each other.